Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief with Barney. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Hey, nice to see Axel. Nice to see you, bud. It is, where are we here? It is Tuesday morning, 19th of March. We have, this is the first of the 2-day FOMC meeting, and you can pretty much see the whole market is just on pause right at the moment, just waiting with bated breath. What's the Fed's going to do? Dun dun dun. Um, I don't mean to throw a wet blanket on the community, but I was very interested in a study that Alex had actually spoke about a few days ago. Question is, where the hell did I put the damn chart? I'm seeing a heck of a lot of similarities between the current price action and what we saw in early January, where we had a big up, then a pullback consolidation, then a rally up to test the highs, as you can see here, and then we dumped following the event. And I don't know, it feels to me like Bitcoin likes to catch a bid into these events, sort of buy the rumor, and then on the other side of the event, we often get a sell the news scenario. So that is sort of that price action from back in late December, early January, and it just feels like we're doing very similar price action here. So don't be shocked, everybody, if we actually have to take a bit of a pause here. The good part about it, though, is they've rallied the market up so nicely that a nice little AB equals CD fruition does nothing more than just take us back down to the bottom of the range. So that's encouraging. But, considering we have FOMC, considering it was really cool to see this rally up, inside bar, doji bar, another inside bar, and of course tomorrow will be the official Fed announcement. And of course, we all know the rule: don't trust the market first hour following the Fed announcement. And so that'll be about 11 o'clock my time, Pacific time is announcement time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And then by about 3 o'clock, we should know sort of what the direction of the market is. So fascinating to see the similarities here. As Alex pointed out before we started recording, history never repeats itself exactly, but it often does rhyme. So let's see how this plays out, and just don't be shocked if we saw the market come off here a bit tomorrow. That was sort of bumbling around in my brain overnight, and I wanted to just mention that. I thought that was excellent analysis by Alex. So speaking of which, how you doing this morning, sir?
Hey, sir, can't complain. How you doing?
Good. YouTube's giving the Austrians a bit of a tough time this morning, so I don't know whether Alex can manage the screen share. If he can't, and you happen to notice, if you're watching on YouTube, I see you over there. Hi, Tony. Just yell at me, and I'll make sure that I'll try my best on my end to help out. And moving right along, we have a special treat this morning, of course. We've got the bear in the house. And I love when the bear's here because I get to ride on his coattails. Anyway, how you doing this morning, Thomas?
And not to lay a fart in your face if you're following my coattails, that would be stinky. But I'm doing well, thanks.
All right. What was it? Is that the ravioli talking?
It might be. It's one of those.
Ravioli and coffee first thing in the morning. Yum yum. All right. So welcome back, everybody, to another exciting hour of frivolity. Great to see we got some faces that have been absent a little bit lately, and I've been worried about them. So nice to see you, Axel. Hope, Colleen, you're doing well in the level 1 program, and I'm hearing some fabulous feedback from your peers that you're just being an excellent role model for the level 1ers. So way to go, Colleen. Where do we want to start off this crazy adventure this morning, Mr. Bear?
Well, we'll start off in equity land and take a peek as to what's going on here. The first thing that I want to show everyone is just what's going on in the market. We've got broader indices, mostly positive for the day. Looks like positive across the board on a lot of these names. And we've got that quadruple witching expiration thing that got finally passed us by on Friday. So now we're on the other side of that. And we have to ask ourselves, what's really on the other side of this whole expiration? What are the bigger players looking to do? And I heard Brian saying that he believes that the market's kind of on hold until after Fed announcement tomorrow. And I'm usually here to show us. I want to make this more of a tradition, is to show this calendar at the beginning of the week. Obviously, I missed yesterday, so we didn't get to go over that. But I think I caught wind of Brian having this on his. Caught glimpse of this on your screen, Brian, but you can see tomorrow, 2 p.m., FOMC announcement. As far as federal funds rate, you can see they're expected to be held at the same level of 2.5%. And I think anything other than keeping them the same would, keeping them the same is basically what's going to happen. If they do anything other than that, I think that'll move the markets tremendously. A lot of people are going to be looking at what the verbiage is from the announcement that they come out with tomorrow. Are they going to remain dovish, meaning that Powell is kind of the market's bitch and he's going to do whatever the markets and Donald Trump tell him to? We should probably keep an eye out for potential dinners between Mr. Powell and Mr. Trump to see how the market will or how Powell plans to be treating the market.
Did you watch that 60 Minutes interview, though? I thought that was funny. He was like, Mr. Trump cannot fire me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that the two of them have a bit of a working relationship now.
I wouldn't be surprised if at that meeting they told Powell that they were going to be unwinding that Treasury fund that you talked about. And that's probably a big sort of reason why the stock market's moved up as much as it has recently.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because we did see that fund wind down all the way to $220 billion from its peak of $403 billion in the end of January. So just a little over 2 months. And this thing, you got about, what, 190 odd billion dollars injected into this market. And it looks like last week this thing bounced a little bit. So I don't know if this is them taking in payments because it's tax season, but it looks like this is if you want to just look at this from a technical perspective, this looks like a head and shoulders in an M. So it's no surprise that this thing came down, but this might just be our dead cat bounce sort of in this Fed funds rate. I haven't heard anything else out of Mnuchin as to what they want to do with this. They wanted it to get down to about 200 billion. They did that. If this thing isn't going to go down further, that probably means less liquidity available from the banks in order to push money into the system. As this starts to dry up, that could potentially lead to maybe an equity market decline. This is conjecture, right, at this point, as far as how this thing really works.
So, Grim makes a good point here. And we used to have just an old rule in the market. If the market rallies into a Fed meeting, that's usually a bad sign on the other side of it. If the market sells off into a Fed meeting, that's actually usually a good sign for the other side of the market. So Grim just made a good point here. All the equity indexes are all gapping higher violently. That probably doesn't bode well for the other side of the FOMC event.
Yeah, and that can.
Thank you for mentioning that, Grim. That's a good commentary there.
Yeah, most of what I've been hearing out of the bigger players and from the podcast guys, it seems like the majority of them expected the market to go down after the quadruple witching. All those CTA levels in which the algorithms start aggressively buying and or selling depending on the levels. I ended up listening to that podcast like twice. I had trouble understanding it. So I was like, you know what? I really need to figure out what this guy is saying.
It looks like they had trouble understanding it too.
What's that?
I think they got that call wrong, eh?
Well, I mean, there's no specific. It's after the quadruple witching now, obviously, but they're
Yeah, the
expecting
market's going up.
right, right. So
All
I don't
right.
know what
I
their
don't mean to
time
be
frame.
facetious. I'm sorry.
No, it's interesting, right? That everyone makes calls, and maybe I don't know if I got their time frame down properly, but nonetheless, the point being is that when those CTAs are evaluating the sell levels, because the Dow and the S&P have been consolidating in this area, sort of the 20,000, $25,000, 25,000 level on the Dow, that sell level has been creeping up consistently every month. And the point this guy was trying to make is that if we get a sell-off in the market, the actual CTA algorithmic sell level is much more closely related to the current levels than it has been in the last 10 years. Meaning, if we do decide to sell off a little bit, that trigger level could be hit on just a small dip in the market, and all those algorithms will eventually start selling and continue pushing the market down.
It's interesting how like the Dow is not broken out here. You know, all we're doing is just rallying into the little double top that's on the screen. So, one thing I wanted to mention, not to derail us too much here, but I actually did a review of the first 2 weeks study, as always.
Oh, cool.
And I noticed that some kids on the internet and on Twitter and stuff were, why are the financials going up? Because I don't know whether you watch the financials, but they're enjoying a very
yeah, banks are leading.
Where is the financials? I guess it's over here.
I think I saw Bank of America break
like
out yesterday.
JP Morgan are on fire. I don't know whether you can see my screen. JP Morgan's rocking it here. Goldman Sachs is rocking it here now. Big bull flag breakout here. And some people on online and stuff were like, why on earth are the financials going up? And the irony of it all is that our first 2 week study said that we had expected real estate to do okay, financials to do pretty well, consumer services, discretionary. Technology is a little bit of an oddball because I don't know how these two should sort of intertwine. And really, so that painted where are we in the economic cycle, you know, early recession, full recession, market bottom, tech, discretionary, com services, real estate, financials, all this sort of area of the economic cycle. And I noticed that, real estate kicked ass. There's technology. I don't know, maybe technology's gone a little bit ahead of itself. But I did notice that communication services and discretionary and financials have underperformed. I wouldn't be surprised to see like a big chunk of money flow into those sectors into this last week and a half of the quarter. And, you know, looking at JP Morgan chart and like, I mean, look at this stupid Goldman Sachs. You can't really get a better defined bull flag than that. I mean, that's about as bull flaggy as bull flags get.
Hey, how often do you see when the first 2 week study, you see these names that don't perform as well as they should start performing in the last 2 weeks? Is that something that you see often?
Yeah. Basically, they'll be playing catch up.
Interesting.
So we'll see how the full quarter ends. But, you know, like people are like, why on earth are these financials ratcheting up here? And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they actually underperformed. And now they're just simply trying to play catch up here.
How about Bank of America? I heard that one was breaking out also. Is that the same?
Yeah, that's sort of one of the big ones too, isn't it? Bank of America. Oh, yeah, there's a big old double bottom. Oh, yeah, look at that bull flag.
Wow.
Really big bull flags here, right? And the interesting thing is that usually the bank stocks rally the most when the Fed is talking about the economy doing fairly well and their need to continue to raise rates. So I'm not quite sure how we play that connect the dots. And I did notice I like to keep an eye on it, you know, sort of talking about what's going to happen with the Fed tomorrow. Um,
So if you see more hawkish tone coming out of the Fed, would it be possible for financials to continue moving higher and then you start to see a sell-off in the equity market? That would almost make sense, right?
yeah. I see. I have this sneaky suspicion that we're actually heading into sort of like melt up mode here. Um, like I did find it interesting how recently you were saying, and I thought that was actually very apt, that you were saying, pullbacks or buying opportunities. So we'll see how we act through this. Obviously Boeing and all of that are creating a major drag for, the industrial sector. And really that makes sense. Our economic cycle, the industrial sector is not really supposed to be outperforming. Here it is here. If anything, into the end of the quarter, we probably should see Boeing come down a bit more and other industrial stocks. Um, I would just simply say this is me, student of the market. I don't know how this is going to play out, but our first 2 week studies, the fund managers, I thought real estate did basically as expected. A little surprised that the bank stocks have underperformed as much as they have, and I can't quite figure out like the difference between technology and consumer services. They're almost exactly flip-flopped here. So, obviously this isn't a science, it's more of an art, but nonetheless, I would be for the next week looking for those financials and, discretionary and consumer services. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Amazon is in that consumer services sector. And Amazon also is breaking out pretty violently here too. So where's Amazon? Amazon, like if you look at that chart, this thing's on fire. Look at that, eh? Another big bull flag. So, we could see further outperformance. But the irony of all this is that this rally is doing nothing more than taking us up into an area where the big boys will probably want to start thinking about shorting. So we'll keep an eye on it. I mean, it's really interesting watching the market act here around this Fed announcement. I see you have the US dollar index on your screen. I was actually quite surprised to see the euro and a lot of the major currencies gap higher yesterday. That might be some effery ahead of the FOMC event. But now actually it looks like your momentum studies are starting to roll over here too, eh?
Yeah, so this would be a bear div if we can break below this level here on the MACD. But I think, let's see, they've got tomorrow's FOMC. So this thing would have to break down pretty hard prior to FOMC. And
or maybe after that event. Maybe the Fed comes out and says, we don't see inflation as a problem and the economy seems to be cooling down. We might even think about lowering rates. And if that's the case, you might see the US dollar come off.
Yeah, wow, that would be quite the change if that happened.
Yeah, but, it's interesting how we saw, like our buddy the yen. I like to keep a close eye on him. Gapped violently higher and then spent a good portion of the past month or so giving back that gap, and yet we gapped higher again here. So technically speaking, I would expect the market to come back down and fill in these gaps. Was this a little bit of bullshit ahead of the FOMC event? I don't know. I just obviously, and we sort of said this right at the beginning of the broadcast, we said it yesterday, I don't think we can believe anything until after the Fed announcement is actually done. And then we should start hunting setups and stuff if you're playing the broader market.
Yeah, I agree. I think that whatever happens after FOMC tomorrow and the direction that the market takes after, the announcement and probably into Thursday will realistically dictate the direction of this market until May.
Yeah, I could see that. Tech and comm services, whatever you want to call it. I mean, even Apple's starting to work its way back up top here. It looks to me like for the next week or two, the banks and the tech stocks are in rally mode. Anything probably the FOMC maybe just cools their jets a little bit, but on balance, they sure look to be in rally mode to me.
Yeah.
And things like industrials are kind of on the outs. Be interesting to see what General Electric is doing in here. I don't know whether they'd still be considered an industrial or not, but we could actually easily see this thing roll over here. It's right up against the 200 SMA. So, yeah, only time will tell. Tomorrow's daily brief. Well, actually, no. I guess Thursday. Are you going to be around? Can you do Friday?
Me? No, I can do tomorrow and Thursday, but Friday's no good for me.
Okay, so it'll be interesting. Yeah, Julian's on Thursday, so maybe we can have the two of you dovetail or something. Julian's report's relatively short, so I don't think it'll be too time consuming.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I really do think all these funds, everybody's watching the Fed. I think a lot of people are expecting the Fed to continue their dovish policy, continue, being friendly toward the market. And I think that's going to set the market up to continue moving higher into, the sell in May, walk away idea. And once that happens, then Powell's like, all right, market's back where it was when we started, crushing down interest rates. And then they have to reevaluate what's going on. I think that the other problem that Powell has is the rest of the world. He has to kind of worry about how the global marketplace is performing. And there's just so much shit going on in the world between Europe and those TLTROs. And you've got China, and now you've got issues. It's just
the Germans have dealt with the Deutsche Bank issue just by forcing them to merge with the number 2 bank there, right?
Oh yeah, that happened too.
Yeah. Well, at least it takes that massive derivatives problem sort of off the table for the time being.
Which was the goal. You don't want to see that market implode on itself.
I think that's exactly why they sort of forced the issue. Yeah. It's interesting that U.S. dollar kind of looking waffly here. What's your take on the gold market and how's your silver doing? Are you still short silver?
Yeah, I still am. As far as, I really believe what's going to happen tomorrow into FOMC is you're going to see the dollar go into this reload zone into 78.6, probably test the lower end of 96. And then afterwards sort of get this, I don't know if it's going to be a consolidation or a quick move back up, but I think the dollar is closer to ending its move. Now, again, if this policy comes out against the dollar, then of course we're going to be retesting probably down into 95.5. And as that happens, the inverse relationship between gold and the dollar will start to take effect. And you'll see the dollar, you'll see as the dollar goes down, you'll see gold moving up and probably retest into its reload zone area. You can see right now gold is sitting at about 1307. And if we can break above this area, this is a nice market structure bottom. You've got bottom here, and then, it's not the nicest thing in the world, but nonetheless, this will break out higher. And if it wants to top out here, meaning the dollar would have to get stronger, this thing, you can make a case that this will end up going lower, and this will set up things like, maybe ABCDs. I don't think we've got bots on the daily. That's not really a thing there, but that'll take us into 200 period moving average. 1250 area is really what I was looking for this thing to do, 50% levels and sort of that idea. But again, we haven't gotten back up into this area just yet. So maybe we need to temper the bearishness on the metals market until we move higher up into this area.
You want to overlay your Japanese yen on top of that? Brian and his crazy yen.
Yeah, you love the yen. All right, so I would do XAU JPY, right?
XAU
or you want me to just
JPY, that would be gold in Japanese yen. Not really saying that. What I'm just thinking is if you just overlay, compare J6,
You got it.
Is the yen, along with the euro, the yen gapped violently higher here. So I'm just wondering if gold has to sort of follow suit.
So here's the yen. Yen has broken out, like we saw in Brian's chart, but gold has not just yet. The other thing that I've been interested in is how the yuan has been acting around gold. And let me see. Do I have the yuan? Here we go. USD CNY. And this still has the yuan on it. So don't pay attention to this red line, but here your price action is the Chinese yuan denominated in US dollars. And for some reason, this scale is all screwed up.
That'd actually be interesting to do the CNY in gold terms and see what the Chinese yuan looks like in terms of gold.
All right, let's do XAU CNY.
Hey, there you go.
Pretty similar.
All right. So, and of course, we have to remember that the Chinese currency is theoretically pegged to the US dollar.
Right.
It's interesting. There was one gentleman on the site recently. I had dinner with him here in Vancouver 6 months ago or so. I think it was Justin, I think. But anyway, The Rational Millionaire, I think is what his name is on the site. And he's getting really jazzed at the idea that the Hong Kong dollar is going to lose its peg to the US dollar. So that's something maybe we want to sort of keep in the back of our minds.
Yeah, there was.
If you saw something like that happen.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that, and also the Chinese yuan losing its US dollar peg. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I think a lot of people are just freaking out about what's going on in the market. I feel like a lot of people are just lost. This market has really spun a whole bunch of heads around. A lot of people were caught off sides going into the end of 2018, positioned short, and then the market just ran away from them and squeezed them all. And that's kind of what markets are designed to do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, right? Is everybody goes, this is the top, all the heavy hitters, right? And everybody goes, ooh, listen to the smart people. And then they go and break the market to new highs. So then all the public goes, oh, those smart people don't know what they're talking about. You got to buy the stock market. We got to get rich. You're going to be left out. And then kaboom! I could very easily see this scenario play out. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
The other, I mean, it's really hard. I want to give out, or at least mention some things that I'm playing that make sense. And the problem is most of these names are already outside of buying windows, outside of selling windows. This is sort of like no man's land if you're already in trades. I think you're too early to short and too late to buy. And it sucks, right? Because there's nothing fun to do. You're just kind of waiting for your positions to play themselves out. But one thing that has caught my eye, and probably everyone else in the world, is Tesla. Everyone's shorting the shit out of this thing. People hate what Elon Musk is doing. And by people, I mean the financial world. They think that his company is totally fucked and that he's going bankrupt and or going to end up in handcuffs by the SEC. But I mean, you see this happen a lot with him. He gets a lot of attention. People sort of criticize him, and then he almost pulls a rabbit out of his hat. And all the fanboys, I mean, this is what Tesla is, in my opinion. It's like a fanboy company.
It's a cult.
It is. It really is. People go
nuts. Where's
Mr.
Thing. Tesla and Joshua? If you ever talk to them about their cars, man, it's like no offense, guys. Please don't be insulted. But, man, this has got cult written all over it.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's
very similar to Apple. Yeah. Good point, Casey.
So everyone's expecting this thing to crater. I mean, I was listening to some guys who love shorting this thing. They were writing like $375 puts or calls, and people were buying those things up. So
I think Druckenmiller came out recently and said he's got a sizable short working on this thing.
Yes, he does. And I think it's down to this level is where he is taking his profits, which makes sense here. I'm almost in the mood for a long here. I mean, it's way too early. This thing's just made new lows, but we're in reload
Cheeky
zone.
little gap right there, eh? Right at your 88.6.
It is right in here. You can see this thing showed up, and now we're getting filled in that area. And this is like a very crude ABCD, but we've overshot that by just a little bit. Candle body is coming in right to that harmonic level. Maybe this thing does need to fill in that gap there before going back up, but I may end up taking some shots here. I think there are way too many people on one side of the boat on this trade, which is short. And I think this thing needs to go back up, squeeze a little of those positions out, because basically the commentary is this thing's either going to zero in the next couple of weeks, or he's going to draw it out and it's going to take years, but everyone eventually thinks this thing's going to go bankrupt. But as everyone listening to
on Twitter, the scuttlebutt was that he was using pre-purchase order money for new cars to pay out salaries and stuff here in the short term, and the market didn't like that at all.
Yeah, he was doing a little bit of no.
But on sort of an aside, I remember Brian's a cheap ass. I use this little Blink. This Blink is my my cheap ass Tesla trade. So I'll ride your coattails vicariously through the cheap stocks, and I'm so cheap. I won't even buy the damn stock. I'll buy the warrants on the stock.
Someone get a soundbite of that. I'm so cheap, I'd only buy the warrant.
Well, I got a free position on this thing, so I don't even care where it goes now. Basically, I've got I don't have any risk on this trade anymore. But you're right, there is a cheeky little gap down here. Maybe we have to come right back down to the original bottom on this. And of course, you got a big old honking M staring you right in the face. But this is Brian playing the electric car market vicariously through his cheap ass proxies. And if Mr. Muntz can pull a rabbit out of his hat and Tesla takes off again, then this thing will probably do perfectly fine.
So is it just me, or is this thing potentially setting up a bot? This never went below 66%. You've got 1, 2, and this would be the third low.
Oh, yeah. So this be. So do a grab that original fib study and project it off of these lows, and let's see where that's telling us it wants to go. And if the stock market goes into orgy mode, it wouldn't surprise me to see this thing move to new highs.
Oh, it would just fuck over everybody, which is exactly what markets love to do, because I'm telling you, all these financial guys are obsessed with shorting this. They don't understand. They're like, who's possibly buying this thing? Why is anyone buying Tesla? How is it this expensive?
500 bananas. Probably like right into the summer there, eh? The summer silly season. Especially if we get like, where's my crazy scenario? And I still think this is totally. Oh, before we move on, I just wanted to mention, somebody mentioned this in the lounge, which I thought was really cool. And this is showing this, 1 + 1 = 3 kind of shit. Dennis Rockley mentioned this a few minutes ago. Did you notice how industrials are trying to break out to new highs, but transports are nowhere near? Oh. That's fascinating, eh? We're getting another sort of Dow theory disconnect here. So excellent observation there, Dennis. That was really good.
Boeing in the transports, though?
No.
It's not? Okay.
That would be an industrial. They make the planes that the transport.
Are the airline stocks?
From what I understand, almost all the airlines are getting smoked here because of this Boeing shit. Yeah. And if you think about it, right, basically all these countries just came out and said you're not allowed to fly the 737 anymore. So now all the airlines are going, okay, now what the hell do we do? Right. So if you have a whole bunch of these 737s in your fleet, basically, that's like the mayor of Vienna and then saying, sorry, guys, we're going to do the show out of a Volkswagen today, no bus. Right?
Hey, there's nothing wrong with those, right?
How many clowns can you fit into a Volkswagen Beetle? Do you guys remember?
Thousands.
I don't even think anybody even knows of those kind of jokes anymore. That used when I was a kid. That was all the rage. How many people can you stuff inside a Volkswagen Beetle? So anyway, that's here nor there. I just wanted to point out, Dennis, I thought that was an excellent observation on your part that the transports are not confirming this move higher in the Dow. Now there was, well, you were talking about something, and I was like, oh, I just wanted to show you something. What the hell was it?
I was talking about Tesla.
This scenario, right? I mean, ironically enough, this is still on the table. 1987, bond market broke in March. In 2019, bond market broke here in March. So, you know, if this thing starts heading, yields start heading up here, and we start aiming out in earnest, you know, we could very easily see the stock market break to new highs here. And that's going to be setting up our, you know, our fall dump scenario. If this does play out the way that it does, then everybody at TRI should make a really, really juicy profit this fall. I mean, we all should just be fucking on cloud nine if this scenario plays out. So, and this should, if this scenario does play out, this should actually be good for Bitcoin and crypto. It might mean that we go into sort of a summer of love, summer of orgy, Litecoin halvening, all that kind of stuff. I heard recently that Charlie is actually going to be speaking at an upcoming crypto conference. So maybe he's starting to get back into the Litecoin fold again here.
Surprise! Litecoin and Stellar merged.
But I've heard a lot of IBM is getting a lot of traction. What I'm hearing is there's a lot of banks that don't really want to go the JP Morgan route, but they're actually seriously talking to IBM about setting up their stable coins off of the Stellar network. So that's kind of cool.
I have a couple articles to talk about.
Yeah, okay. Not really much to talk about, you know, individual stock wise. I did actually go back and buy a little bit of that gold that I sold a few weeks ago. So just an FYI to everybody, anybody who is interested, this Alio came right back down to the bottom end of the range. And I said I was going to start buying this position back at these gaps. So I got one filled today. I've got one more order working down in here. You know, maybe through the FOMC, all that kind of stuff, I am starting to nibble again back on the gold stocks again. So we'll see how that goes. You know, just full disclosure for the community. So just be aware. But I don't think I haven't done a heck of a lot of other buying. You know, I absolutely love James's drone stock here. And if you are in sort of the penny market and you're interested in names, I would take a serious look at James's little drone stock. Where the hell is it? I got it on the screen here somewhere. Here it is. This bad boy. Beautiful looking chart, right? I mean, absolute textbook W type action. I think actually if we change it to a line chart, you even see, oh yeah, look at that, WWW. So, you know, if you are in a buying kind of mood in the stock market, this is definitely a name to take a serious look at. Rest of the names, you know, we have another options meetup tonight. If anybody is interested in TRI SOF, Zach and I, that's all we do is we just talk TRI SOFs. We put together a small little account to trade the junior names, and picked up a little bit of this Faro Globe. It's a UK company, and we also picked up a call on this Computer Task Group. The boys were super jazzed about buying calls on this Ascena. I'm not overly impressed. I haven't done this for my personal account. But the boys were super jazzed about this. We got Jacob and Jeremy and Zach in there. So if you have taken the level 3 and you are interested in participating in that TRI SOF program, you know, feel free to join us tonight. That'll be at about 6-7 o'clock Pacific time. because Zach's in Hawaii, so his clock's actually a little bit earlier than everybody else's. But I really do like how this computer sciences chart is playing out here. So we actually did go, actually, we can change that to filled. But we did go and pick up some of these. I really like this little stock in here. We'll see how it goes. But not a bad looking little trade there. So, but you know, as for actual stock purchases, not really. I haven't done a heck of a lot here lately. I also picked up a little bit of this Zenitech Biosciences. This is that stock that was sort of #1 rating on FinViz, which you very rarely see. So if you're interested in stocks, this is also another name I'm nibbling away on here. So, is there any stocks in the pharma land that you're taking a look at? Because I noticed some of these pharma stocks have just done fabulously well recently.
I'm looking at Rite Aid, not quite a pharma name, but this is a drugstore. This one's gotten crushed over the last year or so. This thing used to be $2 and higher, and it's done nothing.
The retail space, eh? Like they are classic retail.
Yeah,
that's kind of like that Ascena that the boys are interested in. They're heavily in retail. So the question I would have for Rite Aid is, what kind of debt are they carrying? Because these retail stocks usually have to carry just a shitload of debt, eh? What's the symbol? RAD?
Yep.
All right. And oh my goodness, holy shit. So, you know, if interest rates are going up, this is where you have to be careful. So they literally have $2.36 of debt that they're carrying for every dollar of equity.
Wow.
Yeah, I do kind of like the chart pattern. I do like a breakout here. But if the Fed's kind of like, we're done raising rates, and if anything, we've done our job, and you see the long end of the curve rally, then this thing, you know, I could see it come back here. But tough one. You know, just speak. And actually, one of our rules for our little TRI SOF group is we're not even allowed to consider stocks that have greater than a 0.5 debt to equity. I just do not want to buy stocks that are carrying a lot of debt. So just a heads up for you on that one there. Chart looks interesting. I agree.
All right. Well, we're about 45 after the hour. I think we got to move and talk about some crypto here.
Okay. Alex is just giving a heads up, and he's saying that maybe we have a problem with YouTube. I see that you put on Captain Sully. Oh, it looks like it's okay.
Yeah, but we couldn't share your screen there. So.
Oh, you know, maybe because I had it on the wrong screen. Did I not show that? Oh,
no, you did. But when I clicked on your icon, we couldn't share it. We were still locked on Thomas's screen. But
oh, I see. And actually, I just clicked on my image and it popped over there. So maybe it's me that's controlling this today. Sorry, everybody.
No, I am, I guess. But we just had I think we're good because you talked us through anyway. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have CBOE exchange puts breaks on Bitcoin futures listing.
Yeah. So did you realize, and I don't know if anyone's heard about this, but evidently the CFE, the CBOE futures exchange, they're not listing the March contract for this XBT Bitcoin futures contract, which would normally have been listed in March. They're thinking they're done with these contracts. The last contract that they have is listed for June, and they have nothing else listed for after that. So,
well, you know, and my comment all along is, why the fuck was this on here to begin with?
Well, it was made so everyone could short the shit out of Bitcoin.
Right. I think the only reason was because the CME contract was for 5 Bitcoins. So that meant that the futures contract had a total notional value when Bitcoin was 20 grand of like over $100,000. And that's just not tradable, right? It's just too much. So I think they sort of look at, we want to trade this thing, so how the fuck are we going to do this? All right, let's go put a 1 Bitcoin futures contract on the CBOE. And you know, at 15, 20 grand, well, that's $20,000 a contract. So that's a tradable size. You know, 5% margin, 10% margin, that's like a couple grand. Now that Bitcoin's back down, probably in more realistic levels. And you know, this is the irony of all of this, guys, is I distinctly remember back in like 2016 drawing up upside objectives, and everybody in the world was totally happy with Bitcoin hitting like $4,000 or $5,000 a Bitcoin. And everybody's like, yeah, that's pretty realistic. It's normal geometric progression. So, you know, here we are at probably the price that Bitcoin should be at after all that nonsense. And lo and behold, you know, like now, one Bitcoin traded on the CBOE is like the contract's like $3,000 or $4,000. That's not even worth their time, right? Now they can go and trade on the CME. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the CME volumes have picked up dramatically. There's now 5 Bitcoins at you know, $3,500. That's basically about what, 17, 18,000. So, you know, 5% margin on that. That's like what is that? That's, you know, like $1,000 somewhere in that neighborhood, which is pretty normal. I mean, just think of like the corn contract. Corn's like what is it, $3-4 a bushel or something. And I always like to use the corn contract as sort of your classic commodities proxy. So you know, 5,000 bushels for a corn contract. And the corn contract right now is $3.68. So interestingly enough, ironically enough, the corn contract now and a Bitcoin contract are basically the same value. Isn't that kind of funny? So
Bitcoin.
I think it Bitcoin. So in a weird sort of way, I think as soon as that CME contract got to sort of like normal futures contract sizes, I think it basically made the CBOE product completely redundant and useless. So that's my 2 cents on all this. And as I've said from day one, there was no business having a Bitcoin futures contract on the Chicago Board Options Exchange. There was something incredibly corrupt and frankly stinky about the whole thing. Anyway, that's Brian's rant. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, you can see here just the chart of the CME Bitcoin futures versus the XBT CBOE futures, and the volume has just declined precipitously on this contract ever since the June 2018 and December 17 highs, and then this thing just dropped off, and really not much business is being done at all. So I think that's the other reason why they dropped this thing. But I was reading some interesting ideas that
something I'm super jazzed about, and now we can watch this, and we should probably be paying attention to this as time goes by. But now we can actually get the Bitcoin commitments to traders reports, and this is really interesting. You know, you can actually see data coming in here now. So the commercials are actually, they are short. And they're trending shorter, right? They broke these lows here. I'm not quite sure how we interpret the institutional participation, because I have a funny feeling most of the business that they're doing this with is actually with the retail public. But we now as a group, and I don't know whether, maybe I got to share that screen. I think I messed that up. But we now as a group, hopefully you can see this here on YouTube now, we can actually start studying the commitments to traders reports on Bitcoin, which is something we've waited for like 5 years to be able to do this. So this is a huge step forward for Bitcoin. Anyway, sorry to get off topic there.
Well, that weekly chart looks really nice, though.
Sure does. And actually, there's one gentleman on the site, if I'm not mistaken, Graham, who's actually doing a TRI SOF on this fucking trade. Yeah, there he's shaking his head. And I got a funny feeling that son of a bitch is going to make a pile of money here. So, yeah, I mean, I would actually make the argument that there probably is a TRI-SOF trade here, you know?
How do you play that?
And I don't know if I'm sharing the right screen. I got a funny feeling when I click the screens, they move, Alex. So, you know, we'll deal with this as time goes by. Yeah, there we are. So, on Deribit, and actually maybe Grim, maybe you could do a report for a daily brief one of these days, just outlining your strategy there on Deribit. So, I'm so, you know, I got to tell you, I'm so proud of you guys. You know, you actually have learned this stuff. This is 30 years of my career. You learned this stuff. You guys are pros. You're applying this, and you're just kicking ass. I'm so proud of all of you guys. Way to go. No, it's not American style. That's one of the big drawbacks. But nonetheless, if the price pops and his options do go in the money, they should move in price. And you know, really, I mean, I don't, Grim, do you have any expectation to actually exercise the trade? Are you going to take delivery, or is this just purely I'm going to just blow it out if I make a profit?
I'm looking at just blowing it off, make a profit. It settles in Bitcoin anyway, so there's not really a lot I gain by exercising.
Yeah. So hopefully that helps you, Rob. And really, the long and short of it here is, you know, if the option goes a buck or two in the money, then he should see that in his options prices.
I mean, to be clear, I just set a sell order for the TRI-SOF level up for the intrinsic value level. So
there you go. So he's
as soon as it hits, I'm out.
And you know, that's the irony of a good trader, right? Is don't think, just follow the trading plan. Just, you know, if you're going to sell half on a double, whatever, you know, get yourself that free position. Start just spoon feeding the market if it starts ratcheting up. That's the best way to play the market. Try not to think. As soon as you think, your head starts to hurt and things go wrong.
So Grim, you must be playing the September 27th contract, I'm gathering?
Yeah, that's right.
Pretty cool. How are the prices compared to, you know, what you've seen? Have they gotten really cheap here?
You know, I haven't gone in the last couple days. So basically, once a month I go in and I not exactly cost average, but I buy at the current price level if it makes sense on the TRI-SOF. So I've got a number of little sprinkled in nibbles here and there, right? Well, they're a little large for nibbles, but bites here and there.
So is this true? I'm seeing this is like a half a cent for the $10,000 call.
So that's priced in Bitcoin.
Oh, okay. That I see. So it's $25.
It gets a little confusing to do the math because it's priced in Bitcoin. It pays out in Bitcoin, so you have to kind of evaluate the Bitcoin price in US dollars at the time you're buying the contract, and you have to estimate on the intrinsic value side the same way.
It's still $25 for a call option. That's not so bad.
Yeah, it's nothing for, you know.
So is this the same as it would be for buying an option, like one options contract would really be, you know, $2,586 here, or is this actually?
It's a little different. So you can buy partial contracts, which is weird, right? These aren't really options. I mean, it's important for everybody to know they're options like forwards contracts, right? So you can go in and you can say, all right, so there's the rate that I want to buy it at, and I want to spend this much Bitcoin on it. Huh. And that'll get me this many contracts. So I can buy like 1.2 contracts, or I can buy 10 contracts or whatever, right?
Uh-oh. What have you just found, and what am I going to get lost in now? This is cool.
It's the nice part is it's options, right? So once you buy in, that's your risk. So it takes a ton of the anxiety out as you watch the price go all over the map, right? Yeah. But again, caution for everybody. It is built like an options contract, and options are complicated. They are deteriorating assets, and you have to know what you're doing if you're going to be trading in them, or you will put yourself upside down pretty easily.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Well, this is fun. I'm like, so
And
do you,
yeah, I don't know whether you're aware, Thomas, but Coinigy actually now charts options
what?
on the exchange.
The Deribit options contracts are all available as charts on Coinigy. It's pretty cool.
That
Yeah,
is cool.
so
Those suckers might
I
have
used
found a
to
way to
have
get me in there.
I used to have on the screen, and I I like to follow it just because I like to see if these guys are going and plunking in money. But here's Bitcoin. Let's call it 4,000. So like something like a 5,000 call for, and it's a little tricky. You got to play with this a little bit because they got a gazillion different strikes and months here. But if we, I don't know if I'm sharing my screen. Here is that chart. If I go and look at, say, something like, I think maybe June or something like that. Do we have Junes on here? January, February. It takes a while to scroll through this. March. Where are we here? Give me a second. Oh, now jump to December. It's kind of tricky to find the actual strikes. I know maybe Coinigy can work on this, but you can actually pull up the actual.
Maybe if you type in BTC dash 27 SEPT
I
at the
can't
top in the
remember.
filter.
I did this before and I totally got the option symbol wrong and I couldn't find. But
Dash SEPT.
dash
Yep.
SEPT. Yeah, so if you do that, then it gets all messed up.
All right.
So anyway, I apologize for wasting everybody's time here, but somewhere in all this
Oh, you know what it is? It's BTC dash 27 SEPT.
Oh, there you go. Yay. Way to go.
So yeah, Deribit's based out of Europe, so they're going to do day, month, year.
So if we do something, there's like the $5,000 call, $4,500 call. And I guess this series must have just been listed. Doesn't look like there's too much information here.
Hey, it looks like a Super Mario level.
Yeah. So what's the expiration for like do they have a June or something?
They do. It's BTC dash 28JUN.
28. Like how the hell are you supposed to know that off the top of your head? There's December, there's June. All right, so these guys probably have a little bit more activity. December, June, 10,000s. 12,000, 13, going the wrong direction. Let's go down, please. June 20.
So type in JUN 19 and you're looking for whatever price. So
here's a 4,000. This should be, or maybe like the 4,500. Let's see what that looks like. Then let's go daily. There we go. So there's like the June $4,500 call. All right. So we can actually even chart these options now. I don't know whether you can see my screen.
So you can see the little W over the last few days and maybe making a bigger W.
That'd be nice. She's trying. You know.
Hey Grim, is there KYC, AML, and all that good stuff for this place?
None of it. So they're based out of Denmark. Because they settle in BTC, apparently they don't need to do any KYC. It's just register your email address.
Hello, lovely.
Here's the 5,000 call. Interesting how it just came down, filled in this gap here. So I kind of like to watch these just to get sort of a feel, especially when you put on like volume.
Yeah, I was just about to ask.
A feel for what price action is doing. And of course, with FOMC tomorrow, I think it makes sense that, market's just a bit on pause here. But if this thing can hold these lows and turn around and double bottom here, oh man, I think this thing's off to the races. But anyway, so,
and what's really nice is we can apply all of our TRI indicators to that then.
Yeah.
Totally. And we can get our Willy and we can get our MACD set up right. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So that's kind of a added feature to take a look at Coinigy again if you haven't been over there in a while. So. All right, totally distracted you, totally took you off topic. Sorry about that, Thomas. Where do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about crypto today? You opened a can of worms talking about CBOE there.
Once you start talking about options and you show me a way to trade options in Bitcoin, you're going to captivate my attention there.
Awesome.
All right, let's roll through these news articles because there's a lot of shit going on. Let's see if we can't paint ourselves a picture for what crypto is going to do over the next 6 months or so. So ICE, the Intercontinental Exchange, they're adding all of these altcoins to their data feed. I'm not even going to say them because there's so many, but you can see the list here. Just Google ICE and the number, or ICE cryptocurrency listings, and you can see all these names that pretty much every person who trades on Wall Street will have access to, and they won't have to go on these different exchanges to try to understand what the hell is a Walton coin worth, or a Verge. Well, we all know what a Verge is worth, but that's a different story. So this is interesting because it gives these funds, it gives Wall Street guys the ability to not only see in one convenient place what the price of these things are, but evidently they're also going to be adding analytical tools into the platform for people to either make baskets of these things. I mean, basically, now that these are going to be listed on the Intercontinental Exchange, you can imagine that sort of these baskets will become available if they can get regulatory approval as sort of products marketed to the retail public, or even as institutional only products. Make no mistake about it, all these altcoins, these are not shit coins. These are not shalt coins anymore. They're getting big time, and I think whoever made the cut here to get listed on there,
Doge,
yeah, even Doge is listed. I mean, which I don't know. That's crazy. But hey, you know what? If you can make money from it, it's legit according to ICE. So there you go. But I think every single one of these names in this list, these should be in your watch list. You should be waiting for them to come down. Look at this, Tether, of course. These should be in your watch list. And when they come down to buying levels, every single one of you should own a piece of every single one of these names, because this is what everyone's been waiting for crypto to become mainstream. Well, now it has. Once this shit goes live and you have all the managers, all the big money guys are like, hey, I can find out how much a CyberMiles coin is worth. And they're going to be like, well, that looks cheap. I'm going to buy the shit out of that. Then all of a sudden you've got yourself the institutional money funneling in. You own pieces of all these coins, and hopefully you all get rich from that. So I think this is a cool, this is what we've been looking for. This is the road we've been looking to be built for the institutions to come in, and ICE is giving us that road to take here. So there's that. Then the next article that needs to be discussed is this Bitcoin ETF. I mean, this is getting so old and dusty, it's got cobwebs on it at this point, that, whether or not the SEC is going to make a decision on this thing in the next couple of months. I think that June was now the next decision, but it doesn't seem like this thing's really going to matter in the grand scheme of everything that's happening. As usual, the SEC opens up their commentary to the public. They want to receive feedback as to whether or not they should approve ETFs like this. Well, evidently back in, last year, they received thousands of these letters, and they were all in 1,400 comment letters that were all positive about approving the Bitcoin ETF. But since February 2019, when they asked for more comment letters, only 7 were received, and 6 of them urged the agency to reject the the ETF application. I'll just read this one paragraph because I thought this was really brutal. You got this person named Dina Pinto saying, quote, "It is in my opinion that Bitcoin to date has no solid ground on which to base a serious product such as an ETF on. It is volatile, manipulated by the very few, and has no real use case." Ouch, burn. So the SEC is seeing lots of this stuff, lots of negative commentary. I don't know if it actually means anything if the SEC gives a shit either way, positive or negative. I think they just want to see that, you know, the surveillance programs are online, that there won't be money laundering, there won't be, you know, manipulation, there won't be just a few guys running the price up and down. And I think that's where Bakkt comes in. You've heard me talk about that for a long time. That's sort of the ICE, the Intercontinental Exchange partner. They're also bringing online this product for custodial storage. I think that's going to have a big play on whether or not the SEC wants to approve it. But I don't know if that alone, you know, having custodial storage is enough to say, hey, look, we can still prevent the manipulation of the price. And also, you know, we have this NASDAQ surveillance program installed. I don't think they have enough of the market share, enough Bitcoin, if you will, to really eliminate that market manipulation. So we'll see how this develops, but I still think the SEC is not going to approve this thing. The way that the landscape looks today, it is changing. You see all this Wall Street stuff coming online, which is great. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, is an ETF really going to move the market that much? I probably still would. You know, you've got pension funds that are looking to pile into this thing, and that gives them an easy on-ramp. So we'll have to see as far as how that goes. Now, Japan is introducing regulations for their crypto margin trading. Anyone who trades on margin knows that you can get, I mean, Deribit was just offering 100x. OKX, which I trade on, is 10x and 20x. And now Japan is saying, well, by April 2020, not only do you have to register with the FSA within 18 months, but you're also only allowed to provide 2 to 4 times margin on your initial deposit, which really is almost nothing compared to what else is available in the space. But Japan's cracking down. Of course, they want to keep the public safe and that sort of speak and yada, yada. So if you're trading in Japan or you want to be trading on margin there, you better figure out a different spot to go to. And then this is that article again. The other big thing here was that Switzerland's biggest online retailer started accepting Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Tron, Neo, OMG. And this is big news because this is a huge online retailer that gives a lot of products out. It gives access to a lot of products. It looks like they have this $200 minimum in cash prior to allowing crypto payments, but that might be changing with the use of crypto, and they won't be charging any fees. Meanwhile, you could use crypto using this Coinify, but they would be charging 1.5% of the purchase price. So I think this company is just going direct to the consumer, and they're like, hey, you want to buy stuff with crypto? That's cool. We won't charge you a fee. So there you go. Whoever that lady was writing to the SEC that it has no use case, well, now it does. Could you imagine if Amazon came out and said, hey, you can buy stuff with crypto? That would be quite the use case and quite a change to the market.
Well, the irony of it all is that I think Bitcoin is already being used, and it is. It's actually, I think it's gone beyond the test case scenario where countries are settling international transactions in Bitcoin and stuff. So that person obviously is completely uninformed, but I did find it really interesting. Rob here said that Dina is apparently a TTS, whatever the hell that is, sales account manager at Citi out of London. So clearly the bankers, they're going to try and shit on this as hard as they can.
Yeah.
So I think we could easily have a debate with this lady and drive her into the ground about Bitcoin actually being used. I think it is extensively.
It's being used in Venezuela, that's for sure.
Is that's not like what's I wonder what he's pointing to. Go to the United States if you don't like it here.
Well, he's pointing to the prisons so he can send everyone.
Yeah, more like your next stop is over there.
I mean, talk about a shit show is Venezuela. The U.S. just stopped, or American Airlines stopped allowing flights to land there. So they're no longer providing service to Venezuela. Of course, in the news also was American diplomats were recently recalled from there. So Venezuela's quickly going to shit, and they've been going to shit for a while. It just seems like things get worse and worse there. But he's requiring everyone who's transacting in cryptocurrency to use this service called Patria. It's their state-owned cryptocurrency service. They're also charging a 15% fee on all Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, whereas before they were saying, hey, you really shouldn't be transacting in this. It's kind of illegal, but we're going to make our own. And if you want to use it, you got to use our system and we'll charge you 15%. So they're just trying to make money on this whole thing. And there's no doubt that cryptocurrency and Bitcoin usage in Venezuela has been on the increase for a long time. This is the weekly local Bitcoin volume, and it's in Venezuelan Bolivar, which I don't know if that is really worth anything. But this might actually be measured in Bitcoin here on the y-axis. I'm not sure. It does have the Bitcoin. Is that the Bolivar? I don't know. Maybe they should become the same thing now. They should just change their currency to screw the Bolivar. We're going to use Bitcoin. And you can see here, this thing has just taken off since the beginning of 2018. Really, 2017 is when this thing started gaining adoption. And that's because their currency just keeps getting devalued. You can't buy a loaf of bread without going to the store with a wheelbarrow full of money. And people are sick of it, right? Like all these people, they have, I mean, it's a terrible thing to live in a place that not only hasn't had electricity for a long time, but also has this, dictator guy running the country. And look, a briefcase full of 500 Bolivar notes isn't enough to buy toilet paper. I mean, that's just horrifying. I mean, I couldn't imagine living there. And everyone who's there is trying to find a way out, trying to find a way to support themselves. And Bitcoin here is really what's giving them hope, giving them the ability to transact and not lose the majority of their money. Although, unfortunately, Bitcoin did go down. So it'd be interesting to see if the decline in the Bolivar versus the decline in Bitcoin and see which one was worse. But anyway, it seems like the US government's going to continue imposing restrictions on Venezuela. They're going to force Visa and MasterCard from facilitating card payments in Venezuela. So maybe this will force even more adoption of Bitcoin into the space. So whoever that lady is, again, Bitcoin has no use case. Well, I think it's providing a lifeline to an entire country of oppressed people. And that's really what it was created for. And it's so nice to see that people are trying to take advantage of that, trying to, take things into their own hands. But I mean, again, the government's like, all right, fuck it. We can't fight it. So if you want to use it, you still got to pay us 15%. So maybe some people will just say, hey, I'm willing to accept the consequences of that 15% fee instead of using some of these other services and risk having, my coin seized or my family thrown in jail or God forbid what other crap that'll happen to them. So before you start saying Bitcoin has no use case, there you go. There's a great one for you. Next piece here is Craig Wright's, this is just a joke. I mean, Craig Wright's Twitter account disappeared along with 10,000 of his tweets. Nobody seems to know why, other than he's come out and said that you can't lie or make stuff up about me because and he says, quote unquote, if an error is reported in a malicious context concerning me, expect to be living in a barrel when we finish you. I mean, this guy's such a jokester. And, I don't know if he deleted his own Twitter account because he's trying to make himself not seem like a hypocrite. But nonetheless, it's gone. And maybe he's gone from Twitter too, which would be great. We don't want to talk about him anymore, Mr. I'm Satoshi Nakamoto. But whatever. Anyway, more interesting news here is out of Stellar, like Brian was talking about earlier. IBM launches its own Stellar network. They got 6 banks to come online with them. And they only released 3 of those names. That would include RCBC Bank in the Philippines, Banco Bradesco from Brazil, and South Korea's Busan Bank, which I think is a big one. And then the other 3 will be released later. But essentially what they're doing here is they're launching an IBM-based stablecoin, which they're calling WorldWire, which runs in 72 countries. So this is the WorldWire network. They've built their own Stellar, or I guess stable coin, and other banks can make their own if they want. So this whole network is sort of open. I don't know if it's open source per se, but it seems like it's open source in terms of, hey, if you want to make a stable coin, great. But what is that going to be pegged to? I guess they're probably going to peg these to their local currencies, wherever those banks are located, in order to facilitate easy transaction back and forth. And then they make note that if there is an issue with fiat currency, this stable coin will sort of function as a way of alleviating those issues, and just having this network available to transact in Stellar and other tokens will also allow banks to sort of have this output sort of to escape certain situations. And it's just great to see that Stellar's kind of come out of nowhere here, and they're like, hey, you know what? Everyone's been working on their stable coins and their own, bullshit crypto names. We actually have a very robust network. We've proven that we can be used, and now we're partnering with these big banks. I think it's fascinating, and I think it's wonderful to see that this is really serious, and this is what you need in the space, is this to take off. And then, of course, after that announcement, you have Coinbase, and they're like, oh, maybe we should add this. That sounds like a good idea. If banks are on it, maybe we should do the same thing. I mean, all right, guys, way to be late to the party. They've listed all these other names, but they could have easily have listed this one a long time ago, just as alongside some of the other names. The fact that they added Ripple before Lumen here, again, I really think that Coinbase is losing it just from what's been happening to the past with their, they essentially allowed another company to sell their user data, and now they're having issues. They've been having issues with paying out forked coins, and it took them a while to add an actual wallet to their service. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what their developer cycle is like, but they very much seem like they're behind the times now. And I'm just wondering if they're going to start fading off into the background, because at one point they were really the only way into the crypto ecosystem. And now it's like, oh yeah, maybe we should actually list this name. It kind of makes sense. Duh. All right, so that's done. And interestingly, I think that XLM did gain about 5.5%. I don't know if that's due to the Coinbase listing or if it's due to the news. I think it's more due to the news, because we've seen other listings happen on Coinbase, and you didn't see the names take off like they had, a year and a half ago. And then the last thing here is just to prove that, we were talking about things like initial exchange offerings, where these crypto exchanges are allowing these companies who would otherwise hold these ICOs or initial coin offerings themselves. Well, they got into trouble with regulators. They didn't do it right. Some of them were implicated in Ponzi schemes and all this other terrible stuff. So the exchanges are like, all right, how do we save this? And their solution is, hey, we're going to help you do this. You come to our platform. We're going to make this real simple for you. Other people already use our platform, so it'll be a simple partnership. And what happened here is they got about 39,000 people to register for the CELR, and they wanted to raise about $4 million, but the network couldn't actually they couldn't accommodate the 39,000 users, and the platform actually ended up crashing. A lot of people didn't get access to their coins. There were some issues as far as getting the money in place, actually showing that they owned the tokens. I think this is one of the first few that Binance did, and they're working out the kinks. So as always, first things to market, they don't generally do so well without having some hiccups. I think they'll clean up their act. Binance has really been a leader in this space when it comes to altcoins and the rest of the crypto market. And I think that this will continue to sort of be the norm for many of these, is that they'll partner with names like Binance. And then we saw that Bittrex was also offering a similar service. This is kind of the future here for these ICOs, is they're going to have to partner with these guys.
All right. Did we lose Thomas there?
I think so, yeah.
Thomas, are you around? I'm having fun on the Coinigy site trying to set up an options grid here. That'd be a lot of fun, but holy moly, this is difficult. So hopefully Mr. Thomas will come back. Hey, there we go. So actually, this is what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and create one of these boards with all of these options contracts all on the same screen. That'll be super cool. I don't know whether Thomas even knows that he's disconnected or not. Thomas, where are you? So maybe we'll put a, where is he? We lost your audio. Anyway. Holy Jesus, look what time it is. It's 10:22. Have you guys been enjoying our conversation here this morning? Time flies when you're having fun, eh? So anyway, I'm gonna go through and see if I can create like a massive grid of all these options contracts. That should be a lot of fun. Okay, so and you know the interesting thing about the market right now is because we have this Fed announcement, you guys don't suck. Oh, that's encouraging. I think that's a compliment. I'm not quite sure though. Anyway, you know, we should. I really liked Alex's sort of, you know, this is what's happened in the past, and this could potentially repeat itself. Let's keep an eye on how price acts here. If we can blast off through the top here, then hey, that's awesome. I'd also say too, though, I'm a little concerned that where the heck is that screen? I don't know how the broader market is acting right here, but if the stock market is just going into orgy mode here, that could be a bit problematic on the other side of the Fed announcement tomorrow. What's the stock market doing? Oh, it's kind of backing off. NASDAQ, very strong. So, you know, I definitely think that we probably have to reserve judgment until after tomorrow's meeting. But, you know, I think if anything, you know, our Chop Vegas thesis, really, I don't think we can really officially declare a bull until this entire range is resolved. And if this takes another 6-8 months, really, you know, big picture, I'm not too concerned about it. But we'll see how it goes. I do love how guys like Grim are loading up on the call options here just in case we do get a pump, because that's, on balance, that's what should happen. The question is, do we get it early this year, or do we have to wait till the end of the year? That's a tough one. You know, probably just a quick comment on some of the alts. If we take a look at, I was actually quite impressed with how Cardano, ADA, I suppose, being added to which exchange did Thomas say was just added to? I can't remember. One of the popular ones. That ICE, right? So, but I noticed that look at fucking Cardano go here, and this, you know, this drives you crazy, eh? So this was our sort of bot thesis. Did 33. You can see where the higher time frame bot entry level is, and this is a massive formation. Keep in mind that's an hourly chart. If I go out to the daily, you probably can't see it very well. Yeah, lots of traffic, but can everybody see how? And actually, you know, this is a really good example. I think Own Pollution. I have no idea if that's his real name or not. But he was asking sort of about Ethereum bots and stuff like that, and do you take in? And I'm just like, dude, when I was a prop trader, you just simply had to take the setups when they came in. Here's a great example. You didn't know if this was going to work or not. There is that higher time frame bot level. Beautiful W formed off of it. And can everybody see 1317 move stop to scratch? And today's high is 1320. So long and short of it here is basically, had you taken this bot setup, you'd basically be sitting on a position. And this is like Grim's favorite position, right? Whenever the market hits this move stop to scratch level, he just goes, I can breathe now. So just such a great example of the bot in full swing. And Thomas was making reference earlier about how this thing was added to the ICE list, I guess. So not a big surprise. But I guess the thing that chokes me up is that I did both the write-up for this on how I was going to approach this on Trex, and then I was going to basically duplicate the same trade on Binance. And interestingly enough, on Trex, we did hit this 38.2, and that's where my bid was working on Binance. But Binance never came back to that level. Jerks. So had I traded this on Trex, I would be in this trade, enjoying the fruits of our labors. But because I was on Binance, I missed it. Wah, wah. But if anything, I think probably the most important thing is this shit works. You know, just rinse and repeat. So I hope anybody who was on the site who did take this trade, you're feeling pretty good here this morning. Thomas is back now. What do you think? You got a microphone there, sir?
Yeah, sorry. Where did I cut off? Did I get through all the news?
You were talking about some girl having really, well, wait a minute. No.
She was a really good chef, and she prepared the most exquisite tuna sashimi.
Exactly. No, to be honest with you, probably who can help Thomas? Where did he last leave off?
Brian's like, to be honest, I wasn't listening to your bullshit.
No, I was actually distracted because I was trying to get, and I was showing everybody after you left. I'm trying to set up like a board here on, no, that's not it, on Coinigy, where I'm going to try and create like a matrix of all the options contracts. So I was trying to feverishly get that done, but now, of course, I can't find the damn screen. I was trying to feverishly get this done here while you were talking. I've got one option contract on there, but I'm going to create a board with all of the option contracts on here so that we can watch them simultaneously. Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah, you were talking about IBM and Stellar and how they're taking over the world.
All right. Well, that sounds...
Actually, I just saw, and I don't know whether it was, yeah, somebody I think mentioned it. I think Mr. IKEA mentioned it, that IBM is asking that everybody make sure that their cryptos are quantum computing resistant. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, it sounds like it would be a good idea, but how do you make something quantum computing resistant? I guess I'm not technically savvy enough to understand that.
I haven't got a clue, but maybe Jonas, I think he included a link here too. The Daily HODL. Yeah, there it is. Quantum computing, a near-term threat to Bitcoin and Ethereum, IBM's VP of blockchain.
Well, we've always known that most of these cryptocurrencies, if we were able to develop a quantum computer, that standard 256, encryption would pretty much be useless against that kind of computing power. But I don't know, the last that I understood of the whole space is that there was really no way of preventing that from happening. And I guess I just don't understand how you could potentially avert a quantum computing sort of brute force attack against somebody's private keys and crack their passwords. But what do I know? I'm just some guy that, talks about the news, right? But it'd be interesting. I'm going to have to look into this because this is fascinating, right? If you can make one of these names quantum computing resistant, you've essentially created something that could last for a very long time, because a lot of these names, again, are vulnerable to that kind of attack. But I mean, as far as news is concerned, I'm done. I don't know if you talked about setups and what's going on today, but I think
this Cardano one has just been rocking it. And considering your news about it and the ICE, that makes sense to me. I didn't really get into anything Bitcoin because I'm worried about, I don't like the fact that the market looks like it's trying to break out here and rally ahead of the Fed announcement. I mean, I look at these charts and the internals are looking very uppy. I don't know. Maybe the market's going to blast off here, but it just it scares me that this is happening ahead of the FOMC tomorrow. I haven't really specifically talked about Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything, so if you want to give the community your thoughts on what you're seeing, feel free.
Yeah, I guess I'll quickly run through this because this is one of the longer DBs we're doing here. But I've got a long playing on Ethereum. I don't know if this is a valid ABCD here, or even, I mean, it's definitely not a bot. You don't really have three distinct lows here to work with. Got maybe 1 and 2. I don't know if you can count this as 3, but
right. You got to go and clone the original study, and really, the most important thing with the bot is what is the bot's entry level, and do you see structure developing around that entry level? Because I mean, yeah, I could make an argument. I see 3 solid lows I could risk against there, but ultimately the question is, where is that 25 level? Let's see if I can load that up. I'll race you.
Okay,
who gets there first? Oh, look at that! You beat me. Yeah, you son of a gun.
Well, I was almost there. The thing wasn't dragging. I have trading view issues.
Right. So, do you have like a bot levels template or anything you can just quickly chuck on there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, you're my hero. Awesome. And then it'll probably make a bazillion gazillion references. Oh, actually, yours isn't bad. For some reason, my chart, it always like does it like 5,000 points. Okay, so there's 25. And now can you kind of zoom in on price action a little bit so we can see how price is setting up? Like I would draw a downtrend line off of those peaks. And this is probably going to set up like a Lien James. Well, no, the yeah, that previous peak there. Yeah. Do a nice trend line off of those. And that's probably the level that you want to sort of keep an eye on. Brilliant. Wow. So 25 is still a bit higher, eh? What is that, 139 on your charts? Is that what that says?
So we'd essentially have to break these highs for this trend line to break.
Yeah. So, you know, if anything, this is probably a really good example. I ought to often talk about front running. You know, I could understand people wanting to hop in off of that double bottom that looks like it's, I guess, the high of the earlier than the 19th. Or, you know, my hunch is we rally up to that trend line. Notice how that just so happens to be in a reload zone. And that event all occurs right around the FOMC. So I think it's probably a bit early to get all body bullishy here. But definitely it's pointing up here in the short term. So that's encouraging.
Yeah, I like this. I've been playing this through the weekend. It was pretty interesting last week. Toward the end of the week, the short setup just never really materialized. I ended up getting out of most of my short throughout the week. And then on Thursday or Friday, when this thing came down here, I just ended up blowing out most of the position as we were coming back up. I think it tagged partly down here. Regardless, I was out of the position, and then I saw that we were just kind of sideways consolidating. On this break higher, I realized, hey, not only were we coming out of this sideways, but it looks like the internals were pointing higher as well. I had a couple of lower time frame bullish setups, and I just bought the dip kind of back into this area here. Or maybe I just ended up buying in this area, but it was the weekend again. And this is a trend. And once you identify a trend, you have to keep going with it. This is like the 3rd or 4th week in a row that we've seen a move in the weekend, during the weekend. So whatever direction it ends up moving tends to be the trend that it takes the weekend. And that's how I traded this thing. I just bought a long position, took this thing up, and where it ended up and started topping out is where I took my position off. Ended up selling my position off, and didn't really have anything to do throughout the weekend. I mean, maybe you could have fired off a short through something like this, but weekend trading is tough because sometimes you end up drinking a little bit too much. And I'm not talking about you and your wonderful weekend.
Never.
But some of us, we like to do stuff on the weekend. It makes it tough to be trading this thing all the time when most of the action now is happening Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it's kind of nice to see that something's trying to happen today. But my question is this just more sideways through the weekday, the weekly trading period, and then we're going to have to wait for another weekend move? I'm hoping the FOMC bucks that trend because I'm sick of it. So you've got levels there for Ethereum if you really want to play. I mean, my long is from about 136 and change, and I'm going to take most of my position off into this 140 area. I'll leave maybe 10 or 20% on. If this thing wants to blow higher, fine. Give me the gift that I'm looking for, the gift that I'm not expecting, and it'll be a nice surprise. But other than that, this is just a reload zone, trading range that I'm going to be playing here. And that's all there is to this for now, for me at least.
I could actually make an argument of a smaller, I mean, I don't like it because it's ahead of the FOMC, but a smaller bot setup here on Bitcoin on your OKCoin, that's actually painting 4170 as a target here. So, you've got OBV trending hard to the upside here. You've got MACD actually now is trying to break out as well. And that might actually, if we break out through the top here, that might actually be a bullish divergence in MACD. We've got that trend line concept that I was just talking about a moment ago, Leanne James. And that would just basically suggest that we let this breakout happen, let this bullish divergence come in and confirm itself, and then any kind of market structure bullish signal on the other side of this event here would be your long signal here. And there's one low, two lows, three lows, four lows. I mean, and that's a weird thing with like trading models and stuff is, considering the relative risk of buying this W and just basically risking to a break of these lows versus the potential reward, I think a trader's got to take that trade every day of the week, So I don't like it because it's right ahead of this FOMC. But the charts are speaking. They're blabbing at me here.
Yeah, so, this is kind of what bull markets sometimes look like. They look like they should bear out, but they don't. You start seeing these bear setups, but they don't end up playing out, and you just keep on marching higher. And that's what I've been seeing since January. A lot of this sort of fakiness to the downside.
And that makes sense. That's classic Chop Vegas. Then as soon as everybody's all Bitcoin's a bull, you got to get in. BitConnect kind of conversations. Alex was talking about how there's a site alumni who's doing shows now, and the tone of the shows feels incredibly shilly. It feels like we're heading into that kind of environment. And I thought it was hilarious. Lo and behold, I don't know whether any of you guys know the name, but I've been encouraged to do one of those sort of DAV type interviews with a gentleman by the name of Richard Hart. I don't know whether you know who he is. But it just goes to show that we're into sort of yeah. So some of you guys know who he is. Now, the interesting thing with this guy is that he has not taken the education program. So I don't know whether we actually have a basis to do an interview with him or not.
I heard he also doesn't know technical analysis.
Well, maybe he ought to pop into TRI and learn. What do you think, guys? Do we kind of know our TA here?
I think you should do a live instructional experience for him and teach him.
God, talk about a train wreck.
Richard, can you see the W?
Colleen, you're going to have to be my politically correct person just so I don't say anything stupid. And the irony of it all really is I actually think what I really am for you guys is I'm a behavioral consultant. And it's kind of funny, right? With my son with autism, and he has extreme behaviors, and the classic line in behavioral management is behavior is communication. So ironically enough, when you guys blow up your accounts and stuff like that and wrecked and FOMO, ironically enough, that you're actually communicating your internal anxieties. And so in a weird sort of way, I actually like to bill myself as a behavioral consultant rather than, oh, I teach technical analysis, you know. So that's kind of a sort of an aside there for you. But yeah, I think everybody could use a dose of TRI behavioral consultant, and it should make this fun, right? That's the whole point of trading and participating in the capitalist process. Is we should have fun at this, and it not be like stress central. So. Anyway, sort of an aside. Okay, so we talked a little bit about Ethereum. Congratulations on your awesome trading. Way to go, dude. We've thrown up a couple Bitcoin charts and some levels for you to consider here. I've been nibbling a little bit on a couple altcoin names here and there. Like I said, I think I missed a fucking kick-ass trade, and I'm really angry at myself here. Speaking of behavioral consultants. I saw this double bottom breakout, and I had a bid working here, and I went, oh, no, I'm going to be a cheap ass, and I lowered my bid down against 78.6s, and look how this thing's performed now. Drive you crazy. Arr. Anyway, so that one slipped through my fingers. I really think, guys, for whatever it's worth, if you do play the altcoin space, this guy here, they keep trying to knock it down, and somebody just keeps saying, no, 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 don't go down. No, don't go down. So I don't know whether you are participating with me in this name, but I got a funny feeling this thing's about to rock and roll here. And did a little bit of buying in a name that I kind of liked from the previous cycle, the charity coins that 2give. I think I showed you guys yesterday. Somebody was mentioning that Raven coin. Gee whiz, what a nice move. And actually, this might actually be a really good example of a cup and handle. So, this has been one of sort of the leaders of this most recent rally. There is your cup. There is your handle. So, if we pop through the top here, the cup and handle formation basically says that we should look for a duplication of the size of the cup up above here. So keep an eye on this thing. This thing might just absolutely rock and roll here. And then I think Philip just mentioned there, you could argue, probably not off of this daily chart, but maybe if we go down to like a 4-hour, you probably could see a nice little, bot trading setup. So off of that low straight up to the high, if we just throw on bot levels, boom, did 33, but did not go beyond 66. And then clone that bad boy, take him up top, and we throw on bot trade levels. Look at that. And this is sort of what I was talking about earlier, Thomas, when I asked you to throw on the bot levels on your chart in particular, in that it's weird. But, the best bots, the market actually sets the trade level up itself. Can you see, everybody, how the market literally set that trade level up there? You could argue this is a cute little cup and handle right in here. So haven't hit move stop to scratch level yet, but I don't see any reason why that wouldn't happen. In essence, if we break out through the top of this massive consolidation, this thing might just take off like a rocket here. So, I wouldn't necessarily recommend going and grabbing it now. But you can clearly see for the traders that were watching this, you can see 773 area was definitely a level. And you've almost hit move stop to scratch. So you just got to be a little bit more patient there. So it's a very interesting market state right now. And as sort of Thomas sort of alluded to, not a bad idea for us to sort of keep in the back of our minds how the market is behaving through weekends. That actually might be a really good tell of market state. And I've noticed, and you probably saw me retweeting and stuff, a lot of the OGers that I haven't seen around for the past year or so, they're all starting to come back into the space, and they're saying, hey, you know, I'm loading up on this. I'm buying this. I'm buying this. So it still feels like crypto's has got a bit of a wind at its back. So, you know, I mean, long and short of it is nothing really changes with what we do here. Try not to chase, you know, like a lot of these names that have popped up, there's no way I could buy them. But, you know, like our fun little list of those names that one guy, one OGer on the net, he said he would be accumulating. Some of them have, you know, absolutely taken off here. Like this BitTube already doubled. Sons of bitches. Can't believe how close. Look at, and this is a trader's life, eh? And that's why I really think you should keep an eye on this thing here, because as how it's acting. But like total trader's life, you know, look how close I came to getting my fill here. That's ridiculous. So I mean, you know, this is happening in the market as we speak, people. This stuff is happening. You can either bury your head in the sand and just say, nah, I'm not going to participate, or you can take advantage of it. That's entirely up to you. This monetary unit, MUE, this is probably another one. If you are interested in accumulating, I still have my bid working down at this gap here. Looks like we might get lucky and get a fill there. There are names for you to chew on that have not gone, right? This HXRO, the monetary unit, but try like the Dickens. Don't chase them after they've gone. You're just asking for trouble. So, all right. Any closing thoughts? We're now, holy shit.
We can yap.
I think we're done.
I have more to say.
But see, that's the thing is I missed you so much, man. I could talk to you for another couple hours. I love talking to you, Thomas.
I mean, we still got to go over the other markets, right?
Yeah. All right, now let's talk bulletin board stock.
We got to talk about grains. You already went over.
Yeah, man, what's my soy oil doing these days? Did you see live hogs? I remember at the beginning of the year I put out a report that insiders were saying that the live hogs markets were going to take off. And live hogs is just rallying like crazy right now. So yeah, God, we could talk all day long, couldn't we?
It's true. I've noticed pork prices in restaurants are even higher too. I started charting. No, I'm just kidding. I started charting my pork price.
When you go to your favorite Chinese restaurant, you're charting the price of their their dishes. That would be funny. All right, I think we better shut up. All right, I would never tell you to do it, but I think Brian better shut up. So, Mr. Mayor, what do you think? Do we give these people some half-decent value today? All right, he's not even going to bother coming on. He's just going to say approved. All right, why don't we leave it at that? Are you back again, here tomorrow, sir?
Yeah, I'll be here tomorrow and Thursday.
All right, so, you know, strap on, everybody. Get ready for another awesome episode with Thomas. I absolutely love doing these shows with you, dude. It's so much fun. Have yourselves a great day, everybody. Try and play from a position of strength. Remember what your number one job here is to do. Hopefully, Colleen, can you start to see the transformation in yourself and the way that you look at the market? Hopefully, you're starting to get to that point because you're coming into the tail end of the program. I wanted to just give you a shout out that you're here. Again, lots of positive feedback from your peers. They really appreciate your efforts to help. So it shows. So thank you very much, ma'am. Why don't you all have yourselves an awesome rest of your day. Try and play from a position of strength. Remember what your number one job is to do. And on that note, I will bid you all a fond adieu. And the only thing left for good old Brian to say at this point is a big bye for now.